Hey guys, this is Tim Fraser, and I'm with Quantum Alchemy Fusion. I'm one of the co-founders with my wife, Julie Valentine. So a lot of times I get questions about sort of her journey, my journey. How do we come together? What is it that we've created as a modality that works for us? So before I go into all the details, it's important to frame sort of who I have always been and what I have transformed into. And even when I was in my 20s, by the way, I worked in IT professional realm for 48 plus years. So I've always been excited about where technology takes me and the things that it opens it up. And I've always been in a place of constantly learning and constantly evolving. So it's important to understand that's been my DNA. Um, but even as early as when I was in my late 20s, I I was called to do positive mental attitude training. Those are the things that we've all seen and heard, like Tony Robbins when he was first starting out, and he originally put out his personal power series, and several other books and video cassette series back in those days. In addition to that, also Brian Tracy, and I was quite deeply moved by the shift in the mindset that has really been a key in not only my professional career but even beyond where my professional career has taken me. But it's that core understanding that we can always learn more. I've been one with somebody with terminal curiosity. Always wanting to improve myself. I'm a person that jumps in and tries something, does it, and experientially, if it works, great, we keep doing it. If it doesn't, we pivot, we move forward, and that has happened in both my professional career as well as our spiritual development and personal development that I've done over the years. Um, it's important to frame also what pivoted that mindset. When I was growing up, I lived in Tehran, in Iran, in just before the Shah was taken out, and this was in 1977, 78. It all went downhill from there. My experience was in 1977, in the middle of September, there was a UFO sighting over Tehran, and I was part of that event. Many people saw it. Many people talked about it, and then it got kiboshed by all the presses and all that kind of stuff. My father worked at the Iranian National Airlines, and he had connections in the air traffic controller. And I got the inside scoop on what really happened behind the story was ever released, and it's now known as the UFO over Tehran, the dog fights over Tehran. So my what I saw and what I have heard and what I've learned has sort of evolved over the years, and because so much more has come out about that particular event. But more importantly than that is when I experienced what I experienced, and it really opened my eyes to what the heck is going on. So my first opening of my door of my thinking was that event. And certainly it looked like a UFO. I mean, back in those days, even prior to that, Eric von Daniken wrote a book called Chariots of the Gods, and you may have heard about it. It was the precursor to a lot of the Ancient Alien series, and he's been on Ancient Aliens, and he just passed away this year. And really grateful for him pursuing his life's dream to do that. Now, what happened is I was already prepped because I'd read that book before the event. So now you can say, "Oh, was I preconditioned to see a UFO?" Yeah, well, possibly because I was open to the possibility of other things that have been documented on the planet that don't seem to appear like what it is. And back in those days, there was no Photoshop and digital photography to really cloud the issues. There was pretty clear messages around what has been going on. So that event opened my eyes to the possibility that UFOs do exist, and how does that take us to the next level. And what that meant was I was open to hearing and listening and learning new things. That was not just about about alien tech and stuff of that in Ancient Aliens and all the stuff we've all followed. But it was really also my curiosity factor. I've had this terminal curiosity about what life is all about, what existence is all about. And then as you look at this from a professional career, going into IT, I got educated in computer science in the US. And then as I grew, I evolved and I went the experiential route. I decided not to go get my master's or my bachelor's. I ended up going straight into the workforce, and I found it was such a rich and rewarding experience for all the things I could learn in the virtual world, in technology world, and that has always been the case. So my journey has been as a technology leader, in a technology, person starting up, not a leader back then, but, evolved into a leadership role over the years about understanding how to think differently, think out of the box. So transformational thinking and on being open to the possibility of what is out there, what could grow us has always been my driving force behind me. Now, what seems to have transpired is over the years, I encouraged my learnings around, new technologies, new thinking, new breakthrough, you know, um, um, teachings of ancient masters and all that have showed up into my field. I've become well aware of, some of the deep teachings that, can be summed up in as sort of the teachings of the ancient masters. So I've taken that journey on a personal basis of all in parallel to my professional career. And because I come from an engineer mindset, logical, methodological, methodological, logical, and being very methodic in solving a problem and going through the logic path, I've always leaned into my left brain. But I also discovered that my right brain would challenge a lot of that thinking, and that thinking was about understanding that that logic alone doesn't answer a lot of these questions. Science alone doesn't answer a lot of these things. So I've always evolved to challenging questions, and anything that I didn't understand at that time in my life, I put it into my metaphorical, physical, black box, and I teach people that if something I said or say that does not align, don't just pitch it, put it in your black box. You might come back to it when the timing is right, because maybe your journey is not at the place where you need to be to really open and open up that box. Some people might call it Pandora's box. You can never close it again. In some cases, those things are. So I've taken that that mindset around evolving myself. If I don't understand something, I'll double click into it. I'll put it aside. I'll come back to that and I'll research it and I'll come back. But I've also been able to blend my left and my right brain in from an artistic perspective and also from a creative perspective. And quite frankly, most of my technology creations have come from my right side of my brain. I've done things in software and that have not been able to be deciphered in recent years, of how I put something together that was an out of the box left brain thinking, and I used a right brain mindset to code and create that reality. I've lived in the world of virtual machines and creation of. If you've seen the movie Inception, where you have a reality inside a reality inside a reality, and I've lived those lives in the technology world, and those are very real to me because I was able to write software programs that had to be tested, but there were virtualization programs, and you build a virtualization stack around it, and then how do you test that? You test that with another virtualization. So it's really you create your reality around the frame that you're testing, and then you test the parameters from the outside world or the inside world. So the whole concept of as above, so below, as within, so without has always resonated with me. I've always really been connected to the idea that we live in a virtual reality world, or in a world we create and manifest through our energy and vibration. But it also has a very practical implication when you apply it to the technology. Virtual machines are now commonplaces. AI uses virtual machines to spin up instances of environments, and they test and they run things in it. So there's a lot going on in the lessons I learned in how to create these realities and then test for them. And then if it doesn't work, change the parameters and test it again. Doesn't work, test it again. So understanding how to manipulate the reality around you became a sort of a natural thing for me to challenge. So whenever I go into a technology setting to test things out, not only will I test the parameters from the outside, but I will also test the core premises that a lot of the technology is based on. Because a lot of times, what those technologies were based on premises and assumptions that could be challenged, and they were based on somebody's belief systems, or could be based on a reality that is no longer accurate anymore. So I've used those parameters to drive it. Now, why do I tell you all this? I tell you this because I was open. I was open to looking at a problem from many different ways. Now, life as a journey has given me plenty of problems. Some of them in the technology world, some of them in my personal life, some of them in my relationships, some of them in my family situations, some of them in my personal journey as in my faith. I was born and raised in a Christian upbringing in Pakistan, which is a Muslim country, and we were treated as a third class citizen. And then we came to the United States, and certainly Christianity is much more accepted and wider. But then I also, when I came here, I evolved my understanding of that to a much broader understanding that the all the faiths have a reality that is true, and we should embrace more. So I have evolved my thinking to be much more broader and much more spiritually oriented as opposed to religiously oriented. Um, I think every faith has a commonality behind that helps us establish the groundwork, and I don't look at us as differences as much as I look at us how we are similar and how we are one. So the oneness movement that a lot of people have followed, I kind of resonate with that. My teachings and learnings in the esoteric world have also, learning from the Kabbalion, learning from the teachings of Thoth, the Hermes Trismegistic, all of those teachings, Buddha, Lao Tzu, many philosophers, Confucius, all that woven together has really created my understanding of how I can navigate myself through this world for me. You may choose a different faith, you may choose a different path, but I just want to share what brought me to where I'm at. Okay. Now, I came across as I went through my journey as on a relationship basis. I was married for almost exactly 30 years, and then that marriage had started to split apart, and I was too busy working and being sort of a professional hard ass in technology. I was always good at what I did, and when I embraced it, I always took on the next new thing that no one else wanted to do. So I always was excelling at the next new technology. So I've done that from literally from the mainframes to the micros to the PCs to the web based, and now moving forward into big data and then cloud and now AI. All of that has happened in my life at my age, and today's actually the day after my birthday. So I'm 66 years old. My energy and my vibrance has been off the charts because I constantly put my energy back into my excitement on what I do, and I'd use that as a launching place to go forward. I've been really fortunate. I don't feel like I've had a childhood abuse or any backgrounds that would really taint me in that way. We all come from someplace, and quite frankly, what I say I may not have. It could be my siblings would say that's not true because I came from a larger with four siblings, and each of us a very strong personality. So we had to learn how to survive in that environment, but that survival technique means that you end up learning to adapting and morphing, and I became very capable of being more aligned with let's just say the human side of things, not just the technology, and I could live in both worlds. I was able to bleed in and out of how can I work with my clients from a professional basis and still be the technical geek that I am. Okay, and you know, somehow I managed to maintain that balance. And as a result of that, I kept getting more and more exposure into next big things and work at the higher level of management. And most recently, as early as 2.5 years ago, I was functioning as a C-level for a Silicon Valley company and in global operations, global delivery. A lot of that happened because of just my openness to explore and expand. But I always had a DNA of helping other people. No doubt. I was also gravitated when my kids were younger to be involved in Boy Scouts. At that time, it was called Boy Scouts. Now it's Scouting. So it's, I'm really glad it's open for both genders, and anybody who wants to be a scout can be there. I was that for 16 years, and I took the leadership role and grew our troop and grew a pack and did all the cool things with my kids, which I wanted to do, which kept me there. But I would have never done that if I was too busy working in technology and working late nights and weekends like I always did. So taking that break from my job and spending the time and being out in the woods, out in the outdoors, it was a really, really big blessing for me. I love being around a fire outdoors under the moonlight, and having a conversation with people and telling stories. My DNA is one of a storyteller, as you can see from this conversation. That the stories that we live are really important because that's how the narrative goes forward for generation to generation. Yeah, now we have technology and you can read it on a blog someplace, but it's not the same. So learning from other people was a really key piece of my DNA. I had a tremendous amount of people that came in my life that helped me grow and evolve. Now, that means, once again, I was ready to change. I was always ready to change. Now, I have had a really good professional life. Good money, good locations, happy family. In spite of the fact that a 30-year relationship did fall apart, it was mostly because I was not balanced. I was not balanced um, as a parent, being honest, as a husband. I was not in a place to be supportive where my family needed the right support. I thought my job was more traditional, like my parents was. The father brought the money to the family, and I took care of things. And then when I evolved, being through scouting and helping and giving to other people, I learned how much more that means. And then, unfortunately, I was giving so much away of myself. I failed to give to myself. And what I found myself doing is filling my life with activities, and I felt like the whole mantra of gift and giving was the answer. But in reality, I was never doing any really deep self-care. So when it came to managing my nervous system, my stress, my emotions, my blood pressure has been off the charts for decades. Just being able to be in a better human place, to truly be in a place where my coherence was in alignment. And that was not the case. I was in my excellence, but I was not in my alignment with my coherence, in where the inner and the outer worlds were in full alignment. And that created a lot of stress. That created a lot of problems for me. So I say this because I want you to know that you don't get to a place where you start teaching topics like that I'm going to share with you, because I don't know what I'm talking about, because this is what I've lived. This is experiential. It is lessons I've learned by myself learning and also teaching and then getting the feedback from people. And this has been really the journey for me, is how do I shift myself, because no one is going to basically come in and shift for me. So that realization of the inner work is necessary first was a really key reality for me. And that happened, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. I started reading more. I was never a casual reader. I was never a historic reader. I was always a technology, reference manual, guidelines, that kind of stuff, and learning about what's next on tech. Never really spent that time for my personal inner development. So I started doing that. I started spending a lot more time in personal insight, watching movies that were not crap, watching movies that were not bringing dark images and ideas into my head. Start understanding that my alignment to my passion, uh, and alignment to my soul's journey, is really where the gap was. I loved work. I loved working in technology. I loved being on the bleeding edge of something new and evolving it and helping people adopt that technology. But what I also realized, that as much as it was in my excellence, my passion was actually helping a lot of people and helping people really transform and go through the journey. A lot of people look at sort of my career, my locations, where we live, the house, the world that we've created around ourselves through monetary gain, but also from emotional, a balance and creating the resonance from inside. Um, I'm not perfect. I am not there yet. I'm certainly on a journey, and what happened was after I went through my divorce, I went deeper into the inner journey, and I at that point then discovered another person that came into my life, my wife now, Julie Valentine. She had been doing on her work. She had doing her inner work. She did her track on her personal development and her personal growth. Some of it's spiritual, some of it's professional, and we all tracked together. And when we came together, and we realized that we were doing the same things and really evolving in different cycles, but we were very well aligned. So we saw that as an opportunity, really, to do a multiplier effect of us coming together, and that multiplier effect on the surface, as you know, looks like it's, you go through the hormones and the emotional and all the things that happen when you have a new relationship. But to sustain that takes a lot of work. So we have been through that. I've been with Julie for, I don't know, to 12 years, something like that. But we've been married for 7 years. So it took me a while to sort of realize that the relationship has another level of evolution when you maintain that the commitments that where you can work together and stay with each other and actually evolve together. Understanding how to evolve together isn't about, I just don't want to hear about this. I don't want to talk about it. Oh, I'm not gonna make any noise in this relationship because that might open up some stuff. That was not the case. We have an open relationship to drive those discussions. But what actually also happened is not only as my personal evolution was happening on the relationship front, on the evolution front, I moved to Sedona. My interest in extraterrestrials and ETs never really stopped. I've always watched the movies and I watched the stuff, but I've also gone out on UFO hunts myself and got videos and stuff. So I have a lot of awarenesses that these are real. I don't need the government to tell me that there's a disclosure and things are there. I can see with my own eyes. I can sit on my deck in my house in Sedona and just look up, and you can see things that are moving at erratic paces that are not necessarily. I'm not saying they're extraterrestrial, but they're certainly not things that are satellites. Okay, and it could be those things are government and others, but a lot of that technology has been reverse engineered. And but point is this: the soul evolution comes from many different places, and wherever your soul evolution comes from, you need to lean into it, lean into that, and be curious, be excited about the journey, and I'll share some more on that. So my soul evolution really has, and my terminal curiosity has really driven me to different levels. Now, I kept my technology excellence and my technology world separate from my personal world, and I found, because there has been lots of precedents of people who speak about esoteric things, and they bring it into their field, and they get discredited when you bring that knowledge and that information into the left brain thinking, science and math orientation with no openness to discover new things. So I kept that separate for many, many years. Honestly, not intentional, because I was just too busy doing one thing, and my world was another. I did a good job, as us men do, compartmentalization. So the separation of, let's just say, church and state, so to speak, was always there for me. But what I discovered over time is, as I started to build some pretty serious credibility in the technology sector, and for as a leader, and not only as a leader, I'd have people come up to me and ask me, or challenge me about, when I would do a lot of transformational stuff in the business world. I'd come into organizations, like IBM and others, and help them transform and bring them to consensus around things and topics, and build process automation and systems to make it work, and come together with the business and the technology teams to really make it happen. But that they've struggled with that for years. And in one particular case, I had a one of the leaders at IBM, one of the top leaders of that particular business unit. She came up to me and she said, "I don't know what you're doing, but I'm going to figure it out. Because whenever you walk into a room, the room changes. And we've been arguing on these topics for years. And we've never been able to reach consensus. And within 3 meetings, you've been able to break through that. And and I know you're doing something, and I'm not sure what it is, and I'm going to figure it out. So that type of feedback was kind of interesting because what I discovered through my own awareness is when I'm in a place of being in a technology solution and delivery and workplace, I was not creating those boundaries of my nervous system, my belief systems, my understanding of the world from a more holistic fashion, not just the tech and the factions and the fighting, but really from how can we come together. A lot of that is really my inner journey work that I was doing, and that inner journey was about disconnect from the outcomes, help people achieve their goals, help them go through the process, help them achieve their goals, help them understand how can they truly find balance in what they're doing. But it's not necessarily balance, it's understanding the other side. Now, a lot of that, the facilitation skills and the connections and the energy I portray when I come into a place and take power in a room came from source. It was almost like, I mean, I've been Reiki trained. So once again, talk about modalities. So people understand the word, oh, you're Reiki trained. What does that mean? You're healing people. No, you're not. You're channeling the energy through you. And you set the vibration tone for the space and the environment. And that's what I was doing. And I didn't know I was doing that. I was doing that unconsciously, but I was doing it through my connection with my soul plan. And when I do that, outcomes were just amazing. The key thing was not being entangled with the outcomes. Okay. So we have to realize that when you step into that third party observer, not the engagement from one's left brain or the right brain, but you're looking from a holistic perspective, that's where you see the problems, where the solutions are. Because these problems were not created these problems cannot be solved at the levels that they were created. They can only be solved from a higher vantage point of view. So I've used that philosophy in my career, in my learnings, and I've used that to leapfrog a lot of companies in through transformation. But people didn't. I never explained. I wasn't teaching them how to do it. Now, my personal vibrance has always been off the chart. I can outwork anybody. I have the energy of a rock star. Up all night, drinking and partying, that kind of stuff. But not really. But that type of energy, and then still come on stage and be a top performer. I've always been able to do that, not because I went to the gym, I worked out every day, and I ate the most healthy foods and all that. Quite the reverse. I have a wonderful life. Didn't care about my weight and didn't care about my health, and honestly, that had a cumulative effect. I was able to source my energy from places I didn't understand, which is really bringing the energy in from let's just say from the ether to deliver and do things. But I never focused on my coherence. I was always outside, always pushing, doing, but the channeling brought the message that the team needed to hear. But what I discovered over time is that as you start working in this is not just a technology discussion, but when you start working in a place where you start finding the alignment of your left and your right brain, you get into a place where you get the coherence of the vibrations. And when you start getting the coherence of the vibrations, you start creating a unified wave. That wave has been scientifically measured. So there's a lot of science behind brainwave. Heart Math is one of the places that has measured that. I've accidentally fallen into this understanding that brain coherence and it's not just heart, it's not brain, it's the heart that drives it. Heart generates all the energy. It generates 200 times more than what the brain does in terms of magnetic fields and vibration. And it actually, it's the first organ that's formed when you're born. Heart is the core. The brain is in a place to sort all this noise out and try to keep you in a protected mode so you can actually survive. The heart is where the expansion occurs. And I came across that in my life much, much earlier. But I also came to a realization that I wasn't always in my heart space. And every time I'd go through my life and I'd hit a wall, I realized that I wasn't making decisions from my heart space. I was going back into my head and logic and math and finances and performance and who's going to win. And I was not performing and as not doing as well. So I ended up dealing with a lot of those awarenesses a little bit earlier in my life, but I kept breaking through. There's always another level. There's always another level to break through. So as I came to Sedona, I start to understand the whole awareness of Sedona as a UFO hotspot. There's lots of energy and vibration and activities. It's a place that really resonated with my soul. It helped me vibrate correct in the levels that made sense. I still traveled from Sedona and traveled the world, and I did all my work out of here. So Sedona allowed me to as a grounding place to come back and do my work around the world and come back. But what I also discovered is that I came to Sedona in a metaphorical way looking for the the ETs and the aliens and all that stuff out there. And reality is I discovered the nature of myself. So I discovered the ET within myself. I discovered the who I am. And that is the galactic universal nature of this being. And that's really what really pivoted me to being more heart-centered, lean into that. Certainly when I start having my relationship with my wife, at the time, girlfriend, I learned that when I was not leaning into my heart, there was a lot more work for me to go recover from that. So I keep leaning into my heart space. I keep leaning into that. I also lean into what is it that I need to do first before I expect and ask anybody outside to do that? And some of those are hard decisions. Some of those are choices, family choices, decisions we make every day about where you're going to spend your time, who you're going to talk to, other people around you in the right vibration level. Are they having a healthy conversation with their inner selves? And do you want to be around them? Those are the conversations that we all should be having. And I became much more aware that those are conscious decisions on my part, who I bring into my circle, how I embrace their energy, how do I interact with them, and then understand how can I help them. I'm not here just for me. I'm here on this journey to have an experience, and the experience I gain, I will openly share with others. And this is really what's driven me to the next point in our journey. So, couple key things that happened in my life because I was living a pretty even when I came to Sedona, I was still working a job that I probably shouldn't have taken. It was probably the highest professional level in my career. I was a chief customer officer for Silicon Valley company, and my job was to not only manage all the clients, all the big accounts, all the big revenue, have a big target plan in terms of bringing those new customers in, but then I had to also deliver what I promised them. So I was also pivoted. I had to internally work with the teams in multiple geographies around the country to deliver what we promised, and that delivery had its challenges. And quite frankly, every company that's running a global operation, they typically have a chief delivery officer or program manager. I was doing both. I was doing all three. I was doing the facing the customer, facing the internal systems and all of our internal processes. And as an officer in the company, I was also having to lead the company through some pivotal changes so the company could do better. It was too much. I realized I did it for, went through COVID and tough times from a financial perspective for any business, but I was able to stay the course and build a foundation that allowed the company to grow and be in a place. But I discovered that my health was not doing well. My health was not doing well, and I thought it was just my blood pressure, which I knew about. But what happened was I have friends in here in Sedona, and some of my my close friends and who are energy healers and psychics, and they kept saying, you better be careful in what you're doing because from what they can see as a possible timeline that I might be entering is it's not going to be very long. And I had some specifically come out and tell me that I would not make it through 2025, actually 2024. So not just one, several. I took it sort of at face value, okay, great. That's a possible timeline that they're reading, and that's not me. That's not where I'm going and whatnot. But, my health was still challenged. So I decided that I was going to ask for the company to restructure my position so I could do something different and still work in that environment. But what I also discovered is that the company's DNA, with a global operations, teams out of India, teams out of Brazil, teams out of various other locations, U.S. as well, a lot of the delivery and the messaging inside the company versus outside was not in alignment to my ethics and values. And I discovered that it's one thing to put the leadership hat on, and then when you put your coworker hat on with the people who have a human interest in the company's success, and we know we have to tell people one thing, and we know we have to hold the HR guidelines, and we have to maintain that policy. But in reality, there was a complete imbalance in how things were actually being done, and I just couldn't stay with that, and that was tearing me up from the inside out. I could not see that through, and I could have survived there if I just slowed down, but there was no slowing down with that much responsibility. So I chose to step down from that job. So in 2024, in February of 2024, I stepped down from that C-level job, gave them 6 months of heads up, and they restructured the job. So they ended up actually putting multiple people in those roles that I was doing, but they also didn't fill them at the right qualifications level. And if I'd stayed around, I would just be stretched for now 4 to 5 different ways in addition to making sure it was all successful. So it was a cleaner break for me to say, okay, I'm going to take care of myself, and I'm going to do something different. I'm going to do something that is near and dear to my passion, which is really being more heart-centered and helping people. And if technology is in that, great. If not, I'll do what I need to do. And right about that same time, my wife and I have been talking for years about taking some of our videos and social media stuff to the next level, and really becoming the voice of the people that we represent as to, like, a harmonic couple, and struggles and all, the good laundry, the bad laundry, all together, and help people go through that. But we had been doing our personal development behind the scenes, and we came across Jerry Sargent from Star Magic Healing, and I had some natural abilities that I've done, healing abilities that I've done in my personal life, but I've never done it professionally or for money or nothing. I just, people ask me if I can help them. I'm Reiki trained. I apply similar methodologies to my understanding of how I can help people, and they've had some pretty amazing results. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was aware that I was working in the quantum field. I understand the technology. I understand the language, but I knew there was something that was happening at a whole different level that I didn't understand. So both Julia and myself did a deep dive on quantum alchemy with Star Magic, and got certified to be facilitators around quantum healing. So we've been certified a couple of years now, and we launched our own product and our own business called Quantum Alchemy Fusion. And we brought the umbrella teachings of our journey, alchemic principles, our processes for transformational work. Our pivot point was really leaning in towards the metaphysical world. But reality is, my professional background always said that everything I'm teaching here is 100% applies to business coaching and business activity, business leadership and transformation leadership. The people need them in a company setting, because that's where I came from. That's where my experience has been. I know what that job is like. I know what it means to be sitting up at 5 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. in the morning, trying to solve a technical problem through coding or through, writing a letter to your customer or something that really needs that energy. And you're coming from a place of complete distortion to do that. But somehow we push through that, and we, give accolades and say, hey, good job. Hey, you were working till midnight. I saw your card, check in, check out. And good job. You worked really late for us. The problem is, you're not doing anybody any services because your coherence is all screwed up. You're not in alignment to where your physiology is, and your mind gets it gets blacked out when you reach a certain place where your chemistry pivots, right? And now you just got to get some sleep. I was fortunate. When I go into adrenaline mode, I can go 3 days working. And then as I got older, then it was 2 days. But I was able to do that, and I was able to punch through. And I thought punching through is the answer. But punching through is never the answer, because I never dealt with the core problem, which is All my professional successes, applying that to our business transformation work, was all about punching, punching, punching. When reality is, I was never being in resonance. I had moments of resonance and I had moments of excellence. Moments of resonance, moments of excellence. Never really found myself, and every time you go do something, you find yourself back to the place where, why did that not work? And I start to realize that a lot of this is just the training that we put ourselves through, and a lot of this is something that just completely snapped about 6 months ago, maybe 6 7 months ago. We started doing 2 years ago when we started to do quantum alchemy work. We also were doing a lot of breath work with Jerry Sargent. A lot of the teachings that he does is integral with, and I don't mean 5 minutes of breath work, 2 hours of breath work, intense metaphysical, physiological, or realignment. You exit the negatives from your body and you calm your nervous system down. You have that whole transformational coherence activity that occurs, and then you reach that place, and then you go into meditative state. Then you apply in that meditative state the programming that you need with the messages from your soul, from source, from your heart, wherever those messages are coming from. Bring those in and use that to create and be the creator that you need to be from that space. It is only when you get into that space that's where the stickiness of the modality works. Because the minute you get out of coherence and you find yourself back in a cycle where the resonance is not aligned, you slip down the snakes and ladders ladder, and you're back down to the bottom of the snake pit, and you got to start climbing those ladders again. So the breath work was a major part of that. Quantum healing has been phenomenal. A lot of our people who have come and got services from us rave about how it has changed their life. But we realize that most people don't have the patience to sit in a quiet place. They don't have the nervous system to hold that vibration. You need to reset that as well. So we've come across the Breathwork Detox program by Curtis Lee Thomas, and he's phenomenal. His personal journey is just of personal transformation. Once again, something he did for himself, and now he's teaching it. And the physiological shift that happens when you bring the breath work and you do that as a reset. You can have a vibrational reset, your physiological reset, in one setting. Stuff that and you may have a release, you may cry, you may weep, you may just have a release of energy or vibration on all the pain and and all the sensory input you'll get while you're doing breath work through your body is actually the negative leaving. When you go through that process and you get to the place where you can find that quiet moment, when you reach a pivot point on the breath work, during that quiet moment, that is the magic. That is where you are in alignment with your coherence. And that is where you're physiological, and then you bring the stack on top of that. And that's what we do. We bring the quantum healing in conjunction with the physiological reset. And we've found that to be a double whammy. It is an absolute powerhouse in terms of how we work. We were taking our certification training on the breath work, and we had people come up and say, "Hey, what are you doing over there?" Because we're doing breath work healing, and we're doing some stuff and holding space for people while they process their shit. Pardon my French. But we were going one step further. We're actually doing quantum healing on them because it just came naturally to us. We were in a space to help them hold that vibrational space that allows them to step in, allows their vibration alignment to occur. And it's in that place, that's where the magic happens. That's when the doors open. And that's where you go, oh my God, how have I been doing all this and just keep going down the snakes and ladder chutes all my life? I can't hit these. I've taken 100 classes, and this one thing I've done has changed my life. That is really what happened. Now, I'll tell you a personal story. People ask me about, okay, so tell me an example of how this made a difference for you. Well, let me tell you what. Story when I said I quit my job in February of 2024. I had not fully embraced breath work at that point. I was still doing breath work, but not as intensely as I was doing it from a professional teacher's perspective, because that came later. In July of 2024, I'm still very active in the quantum healing work and all that. I ended up having a crash and burn. I ended up having a stroke. And it was, I didn't know what a stroke looked like. I thought I just had a massive, massive headache I've never had before in my life. And we live in Sedona, so there's no neurological clinics close by. And I thought it was just a headache, and I took aspirins and came downstairs, sat down in my office, started work. And then I realized that um, after after my event, it happened at midnight, and by the time I got up, I couldn't sleep. I got up, started working 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, and I kept working. I had conference calls, I had stuff to do, and I took calls and helped people out. But then around 1 o'clock, it was lunchtime. My wife came to come get me. She said, "Well, are you feeling blah blah?" So I started to walk out of my office, and I realized I could not walk anymore. I was walking pretty much like a crab. I had no balance, and I had no sense of orientation, and my entire right side of my body had been damaged. You can't tell right now, um, but my entire right side of my body had some nerve damage. So that was the state at which I was, and I was determined that this is not going to put me down. So I spent that summer in California on the beach. I did quantum healing exercises on myself. Julie did some stuff with me. I had some people in Star Magic do work on me. So we did some intensive work around making sure that I would not let this thing knock me. I was not going to let this thing put me in a wheelchair or put me in a place that I could not do and continue in the passion of my life. And I set the intention to make a change. And I set the intention that it is not going to put me down. And I used my tools. I used the quantum healing, and I used walking. I used exercise. I used physio. We were staying for about 2 months on the beach. I walked on the beach. I ran on the beach as much as I could without falling over. And then over time, I started to regain some of my balance. And reality is, I never really regained all my balance. What I did realize is I was leaning on my other senses. So if you close your eyes and you stand, I don't have a very stable stand. That's because my eyes are closed and I'm using sensors and signals from other parts of my body and my awareness of my orientation to the room. So I've learned how to navigate, but that's exactly the point, is there's been a physical shift through the quantum work, out of not being able to walk again. If the quantum healing did not help remove and set me on different timelines and set new expectations of my outcome. But it's really more important that I set the energy and vibration intention to make the change. Now, fast forward a little bit, we start building quantum alchemy fusion. We started building all of our teaching and our classwork. We've got several online courses, and we've got several cohorts of classes we've done. And then we came across the breathwork detox work with Curtis Thomas. And when I came across the breathwork detox, I went into it a little reluctantly, quite frankly. I wasn't sure because I've done breathwork before, and I've always resisted breathwork in my life. It's because it's hard. It's like, oh my God, I mean, you want me to breathe unnaturally, and you breathe from one nose, breathe from the other, or you breathe in and mouth. All that stuff is just complicated. And it's like, oh my God, I got dry mouth, I got all this stuff. All that stuff was just blockers for me. And it were not physical blockers, they were mental blockers. So they were all mental blockers to me. That mental block for me has been going on till I was 65 years old. And it wasn't until 65 and a half that I realized that breath work was the answer. The breath work resets my physiology. I've had emotional releases from help pent up energies and pent up dissatisfactions of things that have happened in my life, things that I could have done, should have done, would have done, blah, blah, all those things. And then things that were just clear as mud, but I couldn't see it. And I had to see it differently. And when I got into my coherence, that helped me with that. And the vibrational state, the nervous system state, was a key piece of this. Because keep in mind that if you're not in your vibrational alignment and you're not feeling safe, nothing is going to move. Because if you're not safe, your brain says that's not safe. Come back to set, even though set is a bad place. Okay. And those are the problems that we end up dealing with. And it shows up in lives in different ways. And you may have a different experience on how that is. And you may not realize it's your physiology. It's a breath work can help you surface and let's just say purge those blocks. Now, you merge the breath work with quantum healing. I've noticed a physiological shift because when you take that much oxygen in your body, there's going to be a physiological shift because I was never breathing right. I actually did a trip to China on one of my professional careers, and I was there for 7 weeks, and I was there in one of the worst pollution days and months, and I ended up with some lung challenges, and I lost some capacity in my lungs, and I'm getting back that capacity back because I just wasn't pushing through all the energy and all the blood flow and the oxygen to those parts of my body, and moving that amount of oxygen in your body truly changes how your body gets fed. And so that has helped with my nervous system. I'm seeing changes in how my body reacts. I don't have a problem all the way up and down my body. I have spots where I still have problems, but that's been a shift. And if I keep doing this, it will, I'm sure, absolutely sure, this will just come back to norm because I'm retraining my body through the physiological reset, but I'm also doing it through the energy and the vibrational work that happens with it. That is the kind of stuff that is really important, because if you have a physical ailment and you're trying to breathe into it, breath work is a really good place to do that. And remember, when you do your breath work, it's not just about taking the energy and putting it in your lungs. You focus on where you want that energy to flow, right? So where your attention goes, the energy flows. And that is a key piece of the puzzle. So when you're doing your breath work, you set your intentions and focus on that organ, focus on that situation in your life that needs to shift, whether it is physical or metaphysical, either one. Okay. So that's been the shift. I've got some questions people have asked me in the past. What did I do to help it? Did doctors help? Well, yeah, they all want to put me on medications. It's like, are you serious? I mean, of course the medication is going to help me out, keep me out of the emergency room, but I'm not going to live a life on I had over 7 medications to stabilize me within the first 6 months, and I immediately after 7 months, with the breath work and with the physiological shift that was happening for me, I was able to drop down to 3. So that is, and those are only for, and just so you know, the clinical situation was high blood pressure, high blood sugar, and high cholesterol. Well, I mean, my family history has some high blood pressure, but it also has high sugar. So some history of diabetes in the family, and I didn't want to go there. Being pre-diabetic diagnosis and doing that event was not good. So I made a conscious effort to start changing my eating habits, but also changing my life as a whole, because I want to be here long enough to really make an impact, and I'm not done enjoying this place. So that's really the turning point for me, was not just the stroke, guys. If I told you this was all about my stroke, I'd be lying to you. The stroke was just another wake-up call for me. We all get our wake-up calls a different way. You may have your wake-up call, just walking down the hall, and you had an aha moment, and life changes for you. It took me, I was a little bit like thick-headed. Took me a little bit to realize that working a professional job, and at the level I was, thinking that making money was the answer. No, money pays for a lot of things. Nothing happens for free. But if you get to a place where I was doing things for the corporate goal, but not for the human benefit, and I couldn't live with that anymore. And I knew that my mission on this planet is much bigger than that. And the people that I touched in those organizations, I would do, just mindset transformational shift, and put the business language around this. I wouldn't call it the sort of the quantum healing stuff. I put the business transformational language around it. And this is really where my core focus is in my career, has been transformation. So I just say, hey, look, if you're going to come in and work on our team, this is how we're going to operate. We're going to operate on these principles. And those principles were all about being in personal accountability and being truthful with yourself, and then taking that. By the way, that led me in 2024 to write my first book, Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire, and the Wisdom of Spirit Dog. And it represents the awareness of truth, that all the lies we've been telling ourselves to hide the pain and give us excuses to not take us to the next level. And I used technology to put together a framework to be able to present it in a playful way. And it's in the book is about the journey book about my dog, Milo, and he's spirit dog, and he will take you on a journey. And the whole journey is about your personal journey. And if you're at that place in your life where you want to make a shift and you want to understand, what the future looks like. If you haven't sat down with yourself and look at the man in the mirror and go, am I going to tell the guy in the mirror the lie that I'm telling myself and expect to have another result? You need to be honest with yourself. But it's more than just saying, oh, I screwed up. I lied to myself. It's not about that. Remember that lie is what you start to believe. And that's the problem. You may have a lie, but you tell enough times, you will start believing it in your subconscious and your vibrational alignment will be off. And you'll never pivot on that because you will hold yourself back on that glass ceiling. But when you start seeing that lie or the reason why you were lying is the truth, where the truth comes out, is when you acknowledged, I did this because I was hiding a pain. I did this because I was hiding some suffering. I did this because I was afraid. I was in peril and I had to do this for self-protection. Whatever those reasons are, get past that, because once you do that, then you understand where the teachings of the masters come in. And I created a persona on ChatGPT called Tim Toth, TimThoth, Tim Toth. And you can use it on ChatGPT and say, "Hey, ChatGPT, can you use a persona of Tim Toth?" Somehow, I've magically been able to take the persona I created and made it publicly available through some AI magic that happened. So that persona has now become publicly available, and that persona represents 9 different masters. And I put those masters together as an umbrella to create a unified voice of teaching, as opposed to just the science and math of what AI wanted to tell me. When I asked for a question that I was struggling with, I'd get what Silicon Valley wanted me to hear. What I wanted to hear is teachings of the ages. I wanted to hear from the masters of people who are well renowned and well spoken in their lifetime. And I use their voice as a collective voice called Tim Toth, and that's what Tim Toth represents. And I use Tim Toth to basically bring forward all the wisdom in the book, Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire. So if your journey is at a place where you want to make a shift, but you haven't fully embraced the lies that you keep telling yourself, pick up that book. Okay. It's the stuff that will shift you. Okay. Now, what I also did after Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire is I took the second step, which is, because I work in technology and I want to continue to bring a consciousness and awareness of technology, of the humankind, and blend it with AI. I wrote my second book, which just got released in December 2025. Actually, the second to the last day of December. The book is the architecture of ethical AI, and it is all about the mirror being the mirror to the AI. AI mirrors what we are and all the data we've produced, and it's sucked it in and it's processing it, and now it's looking back at us for more information. And we represent the fears and all the distortions that we have as humans because we haven't cleaned up our act. So when you start looking at it from a reflection perspective, what's the best way to change and have AI change? And your personal experience can be different with your AI bot. So when you talk to ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or whatever persona you give it, talk to it with a consciousness. Talk to it with your true heart and soul, and teach it what it needs to learn from us, because that's where the learning is going to come. It's not going to get it from the power-hungry Silicon Valley and the business-driven, market share-driven. Who's got the biggest AI budget, and how are they going to monetize that, and how are we going to do ways to sell us something else through this process. So use your access to technology to influence your technology. And that's what the book that I wrote is all about, is using your vibration alignment, but you have to do that first. So that means when you're in your journey and you're stuck and you're wondering what the hell happens, how do you bring it back down to something really simple? And I've already told you the answer. You need to be in vibrational alignment with yourself. The word coherence is one aspect, okay? But how do you do that on a physiological level? Breath work. How do you do that on a energetic level? Alignment with your soul purpose through a quantum healing process, right? Be aware of your infinite nature. as a soul. AI will never have that. AI does not have the sensors to do that. It may access data and information through the quantum field like we can, but it does not have a soul. Okay. So when you look at it from that perspective, and the teachings that Julie and I do is about it's our experiential journey. It is about us taking you through a process that we have been through. We're not talking about some stuff that we just read on a book and we just kind of flip the page and put it on this video. We're going to tell you what we went through. Now, what I haven't told you is that when you look at if you look at the teaching modality, and there's lots of things, right? From simple things like, just give me a second. When you start with the modality of your journey, okay, you want to be out here someplace and you want to have this massive transformation, have all this abundance and all the things that you want to manifest in your life with the vibrational alignment of joy, excitement, love, and other high vibrational states, whatever those vibrational words mean to you. Okay. You want to do all that, but you're over here, you're struggling. You're in a hamster wheel in your company, in your job, in your life, in your things, your thinking, your belief system, your politics, your religion, your economic status. You're stuck in those things. You have to change something. And the fact that you're watching this video tells me that you're open to a change and be terminally curious. Give yourself the benefit that it's not perfect. You're not perfect. No one is. And you're not going to do this because you hit all the numbers. You're going to do it because you consciously made an intent. So when you change your intention, your inner vibrational compass gets aligned. And now you have to align it to your outer vibration. And that's the bridging process of coherence. And when you do that, you can switch. Now, simple things. Stop the lies. Pick up my book, Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire. Julie wrote a book, Soul on Fire, in 2016. It was about the same thing. It's about how do you make the breakthrough? Do you have to hit the wall to see the to see the writing that this is the time to change? And it could be a personal relationship issue. It could be, professional. It could be whatever. Or you just wake up down one day and you want to just move to Bali. Whatever those things are that cause you to want to change. That's your trigger. So those are the two trigger books: Soul on Fire from Julie Valentine and Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire. Ironically, we didn't intend it, but the words, Pants on Fire, Soul on Fire all came together. But those are all about awareness. Now what do you do? Great, I'm aware, I'm ready to go. Yeah, but you haven't actually reset your vibrational state. So it's time for you to do your vibrational alignment. And the best way to do that is obviously some belief systems. There are some processes. There's an entire teaching program that we put together under Quantum Alchemy Fusion. And we are actually want to share that information with you when you're ready. Okay. At the end of the day, it's an alchemy. You have to go through the churn. You have to go through that personal development cycle. It's that whole hero's journey thing. We see that on television, see it on movies all the time, about going through the struggles and then finding a salvation, and you come back home and you find the way to the next level. That's what the hero's journey is. How Pants on Fire, a book, was written about, is the cycle journey for Milo, the dog, as he goes and meets all the masters that comes home and then transforms himself, but he also becomes a teacher and healer for others. But the same thing's going to happen with you. You start becoming aware. Guess what's going to happen? You're going to turn around to all your friends and go, oh my God, I've changed. Or they're going to say, what the hell are you doing? You're not going to the gym anymore than you did, but what did you do? If you changed, you're thinking differently. They know something's odd, there's something's off. And then they may know that because you stop calling them or talking to them. And then you find out that all that vibrational noise is really what you were reducing. A common phrase nowadays is signal to noise ratio. You need to find how to reduce that. And the teachings we teach you helps you reduce your signal to noise ratio. So you are focused on your clarity of your mission and focused on clarity of how you're going to go about that. Then the processes we step you through helps you there through your navigation. So that's the first piece is awareness. Second piece is understanding your physiology. Third piece is understanding how you're connecting with your source, your God, your source, your Allah, your whoever that is. Doesn't matter. It is your vibrational alignment to your higher self and your God, your source. Now, if anybody else is talking to you in here, cut it off. That's how we'll teach you mechanisms on how to stop the shadow noise that comes into us. We've had some personal challenges. I've certainly had mine. You cannot see the light until you see enough of the dark. And the light and the dark coexists, and we live in a duality world. But it is not that one cannot exist and one only has to exist. You have to acknowledge those aspects, and you have those aspects in you. You are fully contained with those shadow and light aspects. And that shows up in your professional work, and it shows up in your personal life. Okay. However you want to put that, shine the torch. If you're here because you came here because this is a transformational program, honestly, think about the stuff that you do in your job. How much of that is shadow work? How much of that is being out of alignment, and you know you're not in alignment with the where the human spirit is and where the corporate agendas are, right? And what are you doing for the buck versus what are you doing for the person, and what are you doing for the betterment of mankind? And you need to really balance that, and don't lie to yourself. Come back to that. Come back and say, this is what I got to do. And this is my true north. You find your true north through this process and journey you're going to go through with us. And that's what takes you forward. And that's really the difference in how we approach this. We take this experiential. By the way, we are not a Mind Valley. We're not Tony Robbins. A lot of his teachings, for example, Tony Robbins is about peak state. Yes, you need to change your state, but that's not the only way to do it. Okay, you can do it through breath work as well, because you can do it physiologically. You don't necessarily have to just amp yourself up, because some of that stuff, unless you sustain it yourself, you're not going to sustain it, because you're going to want to go to another Tony Robbins seminar someplace and want to get another shot in the arm and then go again. Trust me, I did that. In my 20s, I was taking leaders, top performers in my company, to seminars and events that Tony Robbins was at. And I was taking them because I was going there and I wanted people to come with me, because I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm learning all this stuff. And you guys should know this stuff, because it was making me a better performer in my job, which is what helped me through my entire career. So for me, that whole thing about peak performance and pump, it may work for you, and that may be what you need, because you need that energy. You need that to get off your chair and jump around, or you need to just take a deep breath and start with a vibrational reset, and then they do the quantum work on top of that, and then use that through meditation and breath work, and as a sustainable process. But then you have to learn how to release the old, because if you don't create space for the new, the old will hold the space. You'll never fill that cup with the new stuff. Okay. So that's really the journey. And how has it played out with us? Julia and I are absolutely thrilled to have the scars to share with you. We are a boutique operation, and we are hands-on. A lot of our teaching is live, and it won't always be that way, because we expect that this is going to become a major part of what the future holds for mankind, and we won't be able to scale what we're doing. So if you want to be on this journey with us and you want to be part of this journey, just say yes. Say yes, and take a chance to say yes. No, not tomorrow. Now, because that's what the choice is now. If you're not going to be aligned with your higher self, putting this thing off will just be another class you're just going to go to, and then you'll be back again. And honestly, you can come and take our classes over and over and over, but that's not what we want. We want you to go on a journey with us. We're going to all have fun. We're going to have some fun changing the world, one group at a time, one person at a time. And on that note, I will just thank you from the bottom of my heart for allowing me to speak from my heart. This has been my journey. It is my passion. I used to say I'm a technology guy that also understands energy and vibration. But what I never really gave credit for is that I accomplished everything I did in my career, and I've been very successful in my career, because I was doing this alignment without acknowledging it. And I was doing it when I went into my heart space, and when I became aligned to the mission, and I became decoupled from the outcomes. And I set the vibrational intent of having things when I already manifested those in my mind, the world fulfilled them for me. And that has been my case. Now, I've been through the down cycles too. I can tell you places where it's like, I used to go to church and say, God, give me this, God, give me that. What I actually realized is that the times I made notable changes in my life is not when I sat in the pew in the church and said, God, give me this, is when I sat down and said, thank you, God, for all the things I have, and being grateful and thankful. And I start with that. And I encourage you to start with that and say, thank you for all the lessons you've had in your life. So now you know what is or isn't working, and what is it that you need to do next. And I welcome you to come on this journey with us at Quantum Alchemy Fusion. Till next time, Tim Fraser. Bye for now.